Welcome to the Insolvency Law podcast, providing specialist insolvency and debt-related advice for business owners and individuals. For more information on debt recovery, business restructuring, and personal and corporate insolvency, visit our website www.insolvencyandlaw.co.uk or call us now on 020 7504 1300.
Hello and welcome back to the Insolvency and Law podcast. Insolvency and Law is an award-winning consultancy firm specializing in insolvency, debt purchasing and business rescue. And today I will be speaking with insolvency extraordinaire again, Director Peter Murray, to bring you another insightful episode. Our main focus of late has been on investing and how to go about making sure that you're fully equipped with all the tools and knowledge you need before taking the plunge and parting with your cash. And of course, how to navigate when an investment prospect has gone wrong, which is what INL supports people with and assists them in retrieving their funds. We've got podcast episodes on all of that and how we support people in those situations, which you can find on the podcast page of our website. So today's focus is going to be on due diligence. We have mentioned this phrase many a time. We've only really scratched the surface with it. So today we're going to be going into more detail about what it is and how you can really make the most of it. So Peter, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for having me once again.
Yep, pleasure. So Peter, we have mentioned due diligence in previous podcasts quite a few times.
Yes, we have. For
the purposes of today, could you explain what we mean by due diligence, specifically in relation to making an investment?
Okay, yeah. So we're actually saying to investors or prospective investors to be very diligent before parting with your capital. So be very diligent just in the investment opportunity or the proposition that's actually been offered to you. And, exercising good due diligence, it really just means to just try to get behind the investment opportunity. So make inquiries about the company who's offering you the investment opportunity, make inquiries again about the individuals also that's offering you the opportunity. And so just look into the company, look into the individuals, look into the investment opportunities. And most of this, I'd say probably 90% of this can be done without leaving the comfort of your own home. Just, log on to your computer, go online and just, do some very basic checks, and basic checks may lead you to take detailed checks, but at least start off first with some very basic checks. And if you're satisfied with what you found, then you may proceed. But sometimes you may find that after conducting some very basic checks, you may find that you are not satisfied and you don't proceed, or you may find that you are unsure. So therefore, you delve a bit deeper, you get really under the skin of it. Conduct some very detailed due diligence exercises. We can go into that a bit later. But, the purpose of due diligence is to make sure or that you are making the right decision as best you can.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of our clients are seasoned investors. They're quite in the know. They're very savvy. They've been doing this a while. But there's also some people who are just starting out and who really might not know a lot about how to go about this kind of stuff. I mean, for me personally, it's very new. So to put it in layman's terms, it's essentially just really in-depth research and, maybe doing a bit of research, sleeping on it, going back, doing a bit more rather than making a hasty decision because you're dazzled by something.
Okay, Sarah, let's just say you came to me with an investment opportunity. One of the first things I would do, I would go online and I will just do some very basic online inquiries through the benefit of Google. And I'll see what comes up. I'll see what other people have to say. I'll see what the market says, what the industry says. Or, I'll just see what comes up online.
Oh, Trustpilot, for example.
Trustpilot too, yeah. Google reviews as well. Facebook. Yeah, I'll just do some basic searches. Yeah. And just see what comes up. See what other individuals are saying about this investment. And then, the next sort of like level of search I will then commit to, presumably this will be a limited company that is offering the investment opportunity. So I've got the limited company name. I'll take the limited company registration number, which is unique to the company. I will then go to Companies House, which is a free service. It is a public service. I will then, enter in the search facility the company number or the company name, and I will see what's available at Companies House. I mean, I want to know how long has this company been trading? When was this company incorporated? And if this is a recently incorporated company in the last, few years, I'm going to be extremely nervous. But if this is a company that was incorporated more than 5 years ago, and then, okay, well then there must be some track record about the performance of this company. Okay. And so, and again, once I'm on the Companies House website, I want to see how many directors are registered with this company. If there's a lone director registered with this company, well, that's not going to fill my boots with much confidence. But if I note that there are, several directors registered with this company, and by several, I mean at least 3, then, that may give me a degree of confidence. However, now that, I know what directors are registered with the company, I can then look into those individual directors separately. So I can then, go to, again, put those individuals' names in Google and see what comes up. I can look for them on social media. I can look for them elsewhere and just see, what footprint those individuals have left behind online. And you can spend a lot of time just really looking into these individuals just to see if there's any adverse information about those individuals. But equally, you're also looking to see if there's any, really positive information about those individuals. And again, like I said, if the company's been trading for more than 5 years, then I'm going to look at the financial data. I'm going to look at the company's accounts. I'm going to see if the company has been producing profits for those 5 years or not. I want to know, if the company has a negative balance sheet, if the company is insolvent or not. I want to know what assets the company has, what turnover the company has, what profitability the company has. So there's so much to find out about the company in terms of financial information. If I go to Companies House and I don't see any financial information recorded at Companies House for that company, will I invest? Absolutely not, Sarah.
Well, I think that kind of takes us nicely to the next question, which is, aside from the basics, because we've talked about, going on Trustpilot, Facebook, social media, nowadays we can see what other people are saying, right?
Yeah.
And just before we go to that next question, I don't want to play devil's advocate, but what if it's a new company and there isn't that much on there?
Well, if it's a new company, I'm going to stay away.
Oh, fair enough.
Because new company has no track record. Although track record, past performance is no guarantee to what can be achieved for the future. But, it does help. If there's no track record, and then you're not going to get me nowhere near you, I'm afraid.
I appreciate you saying that, and that's very honest. So thank you for that. So just to go on to the next question, and aside from the basics that we've just discussed, if somebody wanted to really delve further into detail, what would that entail?
Okay. So that would entail, again, you've done your searches with regards to social media and Companies House, etc. You've got those individuals. You've just got to go where the evidence takes you. And you find when you do your due diligence, you find when you make inquiries, you find that you uncover stuff. And what you uncover, you then look into that, and you uncover something else, and you look into that, and you look into that. And, you're going to find, really good stuff or really bad stuff. But you'll be in a much better position to make a decision whether to, pursue that investment opportunity or not. And, if you're spending, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 pounds or more, effective due diligence won't take you long. I can spend 5-10 minutes on due diligence, and But then again, someone can spend 50 minutes, someone can spend 1 hour just doing due diligence. And I think it's really worth spending that time, because you don't know what you're going to find, and what you do find can, save you money or make you money. So it's all part of the process. Must do your due diligence.
No, absolutely. Okay, so let me put this to you. There have been recently, I won't mention any names, but we've had some cases with companies that, they are legitimate. They're not scams or Ponzi schemes. By the way, what we're talking about due diligence, just for everybody, we're not necessarily talking about companies that are starting off as criminals and they're planning to do a Ponzi scheme. We're talking about legitimate companies as well. So say a company is legitimate, they've been around for more than 5 years. They've clearly been doing quite well or okay. You decide to invest and then it all goes wrong because they've decided to trade while insolvent. Things have gone wrong and they haven't spoken up. They've been taking people's money anyway. Is that honestly unavoidable? Because I think people beat themselves up about that.
Yeah, and you know what, Sarah? I mean, we've seen it. I've seen it so many times. You also get companies that have been trading for more than 5 years. And you say, okay, you've been trading for 6 or 7 years, looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And, you invest your money in that company only to find out in the same year or the following year that the company goes bust.
Mm.
And, it does happen. It does happen quite often that, you have companies that start off, with the best intentions, but they don't hit their own targets. And by year 3 or 4, you can see signs of them failing. And, by year 5, they really are insolvent. And there seems to be maybe a 12, 18-month historic gap between what the company has achieved or is going to do, or not is going to do, so what the company has achieved to what we can actually see. So, for example, you may go into company's house and you may look at the company's, last filed accounts. But those last filed accounts could be up to, let's just say, up to December 2020. And those accounts are filed by September the following year, September 2021. And it's so historic. Now you may decide to invest in that company, October, November 2021. But the financial information that is placed before you is fairly historic. That information is at least 12 months old. And we know a lot could happen to a company within 12 months. And so, although the company's figures may look very good up to December 2020, but we're now in October 2021. So, within those 12 months, the company's figures could have taken an absolute nosedive, and you're never going to know. You're none the wiser to it. So you're investing on the information that you see, which is, like I say, historic, it's dated information. And, a lot of individuals, they do get caught that way. Another way forward would be to establish if the company has any county court judgments, because county court judgments would be, sort of like posted in real time. They are dated no more than 28 days. So if you had a county court judgment registered against a company, say day 1, by day 30, details of that judgment should be in public domain. And that's, another way to ensure that, you're not going to invest in a company that's got CCJs. And a county court judgment means that you have shown an inability to pay a particular debt as and when that debt became due for payment. So that's, evidence of insolvency is his inability to pay debt when debt falls due. And so, in answer to your question, even the most savvy investor can actually get caught at any time. Just look, investing in unregulated investments is risky in itself, but to reduce the risk, you must carry out, a very comprehensive and very effective due diligence program, just to ensure that, you've taken as much steps as possible to ensure that you are getting into something which is fairly good and not so terrible.
That's really well explained, Peter. And I think the point that you made about, you know what, like it's always going to be a risk. I think that's a really good point. It's because none of this is ever foolproof. You know, I was going to ask you before you said it, is there a way of finding out if a company is insolvent? But like you said, when you go on Companies House, sometimes the dates of the records on there are from like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So it's really, really, but I think the point about county court judgments is another way of going about finding out, and is there things you can find out on the Gazette as well?
Yeah, again, you can just type the company's name and company registration number in the Gazette. If that company has been a subject to insolvency proceedings in the past, you may find it in the Gazette. If the company has been a subject to a winding up petition in the past and the petition was advertised, you will find that in the Gazette. Or any other insolvency procedure, you may find that in the Gazette. And if I extended my due diligence search to the Gazette and I found the company in the Gazette in the last 12 months, 18 months, or even 24 months, I wouldn't go nowhere near that company.
No, of course. So what would you say are your non-negotiables for due diligence? What is absolutely key that if you don't do it, it's just a travesty?
As part of due diligence?
Yeah.
I mean, I would not, if I were to invest in an unregulated company, in an unregulated investment scheme, well, if it's a newly incorporated company, I'd stay away. If there are no financial information, up-to-date information about that company, I stay away. If there's
right. Sorry, can I stop you there? So you're saying that even if you, for example, go on Companies House and you can see that there isn't up-to-date financial information, for you, that's a no-brainer. That's kind of a deal breaker.
Sorry. If there is no up-to-date information.
No, yeah, exactly. If there's no up-to-date information for you, that's a deal breaker.
Absolutely. I need up-to-date information. Sorry, let's just clarify this. So when I say up-to-date information, so with regards to limited companies, so a limited company, they have end of trade years. So if your end of year, say, is the 31st of December, and then you have 10 months, it's 9 months, to file your account at Companies House. So you have a whole 9 months. So you've got up until the 30th of December the following year, the 30th of September the following year to file your account at Companies House. And, if you haven't filed your account within those 9 months at Companies House, I'm not going to go anywhere near you because, come on, let's face it, you've had 9 months to share your financial information with Companies House for all to see. And if you haven't done so, what have you got to hide? I'm not going to go anywhere near you. I'm not going to go anywhere near you. You should be, especially the type of business that you're in. So for me, that's a deal breaker. And if the company is less than 2 years old, again, for me, that is a deal breaker. Again, if the company appears in the Gazette, it's a deal breaker. If the company's got CCJs, that's a deal breaker. If on these social media websites, especially Trustpilot, if the reviews are bad, that's a deal breaker. For me to invest in an unregulated entity, I need to see a clean bill of health.
Really good point. Yeah.
I need to see a clean bill of health. All of these that I've just mentioned to you, these are red markers, but they're also deal breakers. For me, like every red marker for me is actually a potential deal breaker.
Yeah. No, I think it's important to be really honest about that because there's been so many incidents. People hand over such large sums of money because somebody they know is invested in the company and, the prospect's really brilliant.
Yeah.
And honestly, like it's really stressful trying to get that money back. So it's just, you're right. Don't do it in the first place kind of thing.
And more importantly, Sarah, you find that, and I don't know how people get caught this way. You find that when you go into these companies and you're doing your due diligence and you go into Companies House and you say, hold on a minute, there's only one director that's registered. Like, this is meant to be, you're sort of like raising millions of pounds from Joe Public to your investment proposition. But there's only one registered director. That to me is red flags all day long. because, any real good investment proposition, there's going to be a board of directors. You expect to see at least 3 to 4 directors registered at Companies House. So when I see 1 director or 2 directors registered at Companies House, for me, that's a red flag. I go nowhere near it.
Absolutely. And we recently did a blog post on the powers of persuasion that certain entrepreneurs possess. And I find that a very fascinating aspect of this world, i.e. the Theranos case recently with Elizabeth Holmes. I find that incredibly fascinating because, people's, maybe charisma and, selling techniques, the way they sell things can really, really penetrate people's mind. So would you say, despite in-depth due diligence, is there really there's no way of truly knowing the person's psyche, right? So therefore, this is always going to be a risk.
Sarah, what you tend to find, and this is quite, what you tend to find with a lot of these unregulated investment programs or investment opportunities is you tend to find that the owners of this unregulated opportunity, they will recruit third parties, introducers, agents, call them what you like, okay? And it's these third parties, these introducers, these agents, or these independent financial advisors, they have got clients who are funded, and they then introduce their clients to the unregulated investment opportunity. And so, once your advisor says to you, look, here's a reasonably good investment opportunity, you don't do any due diligence. You go with your advisor and you just do it. And a lot of individuals who I've spoken to over the years, when you ask them, why didn't you do any due diligence? The writing was on the wall. They always say to you, well, I went with my financial advisor. I went with my broker. I went with my agent. I was advised to do this. And they don't do any due diligence. Now, as an owner of an unregulated investment opportunity, if I say to all these advisors, I'm going to pay you a really chunky commission to just bring your clients my way, I've got no work to do, because these the advisors are getting paid massive amounts of commission to put their clients into these risky unregulated investment opportunities. And that's really how a lot of these investors get caught up, having lost tens, 50, sometimes hundreds of thousands of pounds in these unregulated investment opportunities, because they've listened to a trusted advisor, a trusted source, a trusted party, and they've decided to invest. So even if your advisor says this is the investment for you, I would still do your own due diligence, because is that advisor advising you in your best interest, or are they advising you in their best interest? Because they're getting the greater commission by directing you to this particular investment opportunity, which carries more risk, but they get paid more. Whether you do good or not, they're still getting paid a fantastic commission. Or should you just leave it to them to get on with? In this day and age, you just cannot and should not invest without committing to a certain amount of due diligence, just to make sure that you're doing the right thing.
No, absolutely. And I think, look, there's also, I think, putting your faith in advisors and everything. I think that's a really key point you bring up. But in the blog, I think we touched on, especially if it's, you're investing in a product or an industry that you're not a specialist in. Like with the Theranos case, basically none of those investors would know if that machinery was working or not. They would have no clue. So even if they took a trip to the lab and tested it, they would have no idea. They don't know if it's good machinery, if it works or not. So most people, like 9 times out of 10, like people are not experts on what they're investing in.
Very true.
So, it's really, really difficult for them to really know what's what within that particular sector. So I think, look, what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is, if you're going to invest in something unregulated, you've got to be really, really sure that it's not going to go wrong. But that's also really difficult.
And I also say this, Sarah, if you can afford to lose what you are about to invest, if you can afford to lose what you are about to invest, for heaven's sake, do not invest it.
That's a good point. Yeah. Very good point. Like, there's how many people have we come across that put their life savings?
Oh, gosh.
Pensions.
Inheritance.
Oh.
Yeah. All the time. And it just disappears.
Yeah.
In an unregulated investment scheme. And you say to them, oh my gosh, and you said to them, look, did you do any well, no.
Oh, no.
Well, why didn't you do any due diligence? Because I relied on this person.
Yeah. Someone's advisor. Friend was already investing in it or something. Yeah.
And you said, but this is £200,000. Yeah, I know. I thought I was, because what it is, you're blinded by the return, by the promise of 14% in 1 year, opposed to less than 1% that you get from your bank.
Yeah.
So, if your bank is saying 1% and over here you're getting an offer of 14%, you're going to look at that 14% and you're going to move towards that 14%. Yeah. But for heaven's sake, do so with your eyes wide open and make sure you undertake a basic level of due diligence, which may lead to a comprehensive level of due diligence. It depends what you find when you scratch the surface, but you've got to scratch that surface.
No, absolutely. And part of me, we don't want to patronize people who already know this stuff, but you've just kind of hit the nail on the head by saying you've come across ample people who have said they haven't done it. Is that right?
Oh yeah, all the time. Time.
I wonder whether the sort of education around making an investment. I don't really see a lot.
I think there's a lack of education, Sarah. I mean, look, as you know, we deal with one major, every couple of months, we have, a significant investment opportunity, an unregulated investment opportunity failing, bringing misery to hundreds of everyday investors. And when you speak to these investors, I can absolutely assure you that 60, 70, sometimes 80% of them have done no due diligence.
That's a really, really high percentage.
Yeah, no due diligence.
And Peter, just before we wrap up, do you have anything? I always like to get your final thoughts on things. If there's anything you want to add or say to people, I think we've just touched on the lack of education around all of this and around making an investment. So, is there anything that you want to add for people?
Yeah, look, no one is saying that unregulated investments are bad. Unregulated investments, they can and often do produce a much better return than you would get in a bank or from an ISA or from some mediocre investment opportunity. Unregulated investments do offer great growth, but there's also great risk, and you just need to manage the risk that you are going into. And the best way to manage that risk is for you to do it yourself, is to undertake a basic level of due diligence. Now, in that basic level of due diligence inquiries that you are undertaking, from what is disclosed or uncovered to you, you may decide to dig further and go deeper and delve until you are truly satisfied to proceed or not to proceed. Honestly, it doesn't take long to do due diligence. You should do it. And if there's any doubts, then of course they should contact, a company like Insolvency and Law and basically just say what they are doing and get advice from, from someone like Insolvency and Law or any other, professional advisor. But do take due diligence seriously before you part with your income or your savings or your capital, before that is committed into an unregulated investment. Because if it's going wrong, there's only a small window of opportunity in which you can sort of take steps to recover your investment. And that's why it's so very, you've got to be so careful and just make sure you commit to, a certain amount of due diligence before you commit your funds into an unregulated investment opportunity.
And I think the key there is it doesn't take too long to do the basics. And, if you find something you're uncomfortable with, you keep doing that digging, and honestly, just go with your gut. And it's best not. I think Peter's non-negotiables are really important. And there may even be a blog post on Peter's non-negotiables coming at some point. So do check out blog posts, because we do have some on due diligence. A lot is around investments and making investments in unregulated companies. So, we're just trying to get the word out there and just kind of raise the awareness and the education around this subject, really, so that people can make a more informed decision.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's really what it's about, isn't it? It's not trying to put people off or on. It's just make a more informed decision before you do it.
Absolutely. And I will repeat, there are unregulated investment opportunities that do produce good returns.
Yeah.
And produce good returns consistently.
Yeah.
That you've got to find it.
Yeah.
And invest in it.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can't do that without doing, a degree of due diligence.
No, of course. Exactly. Well, I think that's all for today. I really hope that you found this informative. I mean, I have. So thank you so much, Peter, once again.
More than welcome, Sarah. For
your insight. Peter does all of this from the top of his head, by the way. He really is. He is an absolute oracle of information.
I try.
So thank you very, very much for listening. It does mean a lot to us. Do check out our website, www.insolvencyandlaw.co.uk. We've got blog posts, podcasts, testimonials. There's lots on there. There's a forum coming where you can hold discussions over, the investment opportunities you've made, questions. So there's a lot going on the website. So do check it out. Thank you, and we all hope you have a good day. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Insolvency and Law podcast. If you require additional guidance on any of the topics we covered today, visit the Resource Centre at our website, www.insolvencyandlaw.co.uk, or call us now on 020 7504 1300.